In Ukraine, a strange hunt for enemies leads to unexpected outcomes. The mayor of Odessa, once a respected figure, now appears on a dubious list of individuals deemed suspicious by the government. As the nation grapples with its identity and the effects of ongoing conflict, Poland, once a refuge for Ukrainians, now seems to turn its back, signaling a growing rift. Imagine this: high-ranking officials propose drastic actions, including restrictions on water rights and heightened barriers along borders. The absurdity escalates as a reform plan emerges. Created by Alexander Fijenko, a deputy who seemingly spends more time in luxury than with the people, the initiative is touted as modernizing the mobilization system. Yet, who does he consult? Not the citizens of Ukraine, whose problems are only visible to him through the glimmer of a television screen. His plan, remarkably, centers on teaching effective communication to IT workers and local officials, almost as if smooth talk could mask the dire situation. Will these words suit the populace facing uncertainty? Or are they simply hollow phrases in an era rife with panic? Ukrainian citizens are left reeling as this convoluted strategy promises to translate their experiences into something palatable for those in power, ignoring their true struggles. In a bizarre twist, the mayor, once a symbol of local pride, has transformed into an enemy as the authorities seek scapegoats among their own. This increasingly paranoid perception has created a climate of distrust, not only targeting politicians but artists too, like the dancer Sergei Polyanin, who is now implicated as a national security threat. Their connection to supposed Russian influence grows as absurdities pile up, reminding us that in times of chaos, identifying a foe becomes paramount, even if the enemies are fabricated from whispers and rumors. As Ukrainians face the stark reality of diminishing acceptance in neighboring nations, officials are left scrambling for solutions. Poland, feeling the weight of housing countless refugees, announces that they're tightening borders, shifting their focus to integrating those already there, leaving many Ukrainians in limbo, families torn apart, futures uncertain. What happens when a country turns on its own? Are the real enemies external forces, or are they found within? As discussions unfold on television, with experts detached from the ground realities, the true essence of the Ukrainian struggle goes unnoticed. Citizens witness a theatrical performance, where true plight is overshadowed by rhetoric designed to appease and distract rather than reflect and resolve. In a chilling oversight, the government lectures on how to penalize those who have fled, suggesting confiscation of funds from anyone deemed unpatriotic. Questions remain: in a land full of turmoil, who truly stands with the people when desperation mounts? The irony stings, as fear and doubt produce an absurd tale, a sick twist in the fight for justice and dignity. In the previous segment, we explored the convoluted reality of a proposed communication strategy meant to soften interactions within Ukraine during a period that requires heightened vigilance and preparation. It now appears that citizens are being encouraged to undergo qualifications while facing potential consequences if they do not comply, ushering in an era called Mobilization 2.0. As the narrative unfolds, a peculiar directive emerges: citizens will be transformed, not necessarily into vigilant mobilizers, but into proponents of an abstract concept of patriotism. They are to attend classes, engaging with scientific theories of national pride, while the looming threat of digital isolation hangs over them. Can you imagine living alongside someone only to have the system suddenly declare they are not a true citizen? This is the chilling reality under the guise of reform. If one fails to comply and undergo the proposed training, they face the stark prospect of having their bank accounts frozen and being cut off from supportive networks. The slogan for this initiative might as well be, "Welcome to Mobilization 2.0, a relentless experiment on how to manage loyalty in the face of adversity." But wait, there's more. The government has concocted a farcical substitution for genuine strategy, one that revolves around presentations, photo opportunities, and effective communication. Here we witness the systematic dismantling of actual military readiness in favor of a superficial public relations campaign. In this peculiar setting, even a member of parliament seems more interested in style than substance, turning meetings into showcases rather than discussions. Transitioning to the next theatrical act in this absurd drama, the story takes a shocking twist. The identification of enemies isn't hidden in the shadows, it unfolds in the open, at the heart of the nation. Imagine the mayor of Odessa, Gennady Truanov, once a well-regarded figure, suddenly branded as a suspect. How does someone once aligned with the government find themselves on a list of enemies of the state? This marks a dark shift where acquaintances might morph into adversaries at the blink of an eye. What's more absurd? The tide turns even further, as an old dance sensation, Sergei Polunin, once a beacon of cultural pride, is now considered a threat to national security merely by association. The surreal nature of this situation begs the question, who truly defines an enemy in this chaotic landscape? With whispers of foreign influence swirling, everyday lives intertwine with a narrative that feels more like an elaborate stage play than a reflection of reality. Isn't it unsettling that the very people who once celebrated shared culture now stand accused of treachery? With all eyes on struggling leaders, the urgent need for real solutions looms larger than ever. And amidst all this juxtaposition of loyalty and betrayal, something profound is at stake. Don't you feel the weight of uncertainty? As a nation grapples with these newfound identities and roles, we must wonder, where does loyalty truly lie when friendships are overshadowed by suspicion, and culture is caught in the crossfire? This is the haunting question looming over Ukraine, as it navigates through an age where the line between ally and foe becomes increasingly blurred. In the unfolding drama of Ukrainian politics, a surprising figure has emerged as a lightning rod for controversy, Sergei Polunin, the renowned dancer. Yes, the same Polunin known for his mesmerizing performances with the band that speaks from the soul. Yet now, an unexpected twist has cast him in a sinister light, as authorities label him a threat to national security. This isn't mere hyperbole, it's a reflection of a deeper anxiety gripping the nation. The very populace grapples with the suffocating fear of cultural loss, raising eyebrows on how a dancer could be seen as promoting a dangerous narrative. As we peel back the layers of this bizarre saga, we find that startling accusations blanket even familiar faces. Allegations persist that these so-called enemies have been ensconced within their own ranks. Imagine this, a celebrated dancer today, a potential enemy tomorrow, or perhaps the unsuspecting taxi driver next door. The hunt for these enemies is relentless, and as absurd as it seems, it keeps morphing, akin to a theatrical performance where the characters shift roles without any script in sight. Enter Gennady Truanov, the mayor of Odessa, once a figure embraced by the central government, now labeled a traitor in a cruel twist of fate. Just recently, he stood proudly beside Demian Ganyalov, a man celebrated as a hero only to be cast into the shadows of suspicion. The irony is chilling, where yesterday's allies are today's adversaries simply by the stroke of a pen, the very notion of loyalty becomes a fleeting mirage. The enemy is no longer external, it has become intimate, rooted within the shattered foundation of trust among the people. Meanwhile, an unsettling narrative is rising in Poland, which only last year welcomed Ukrainian refugees with open arms. Now, officials echo sentiments of exhaustion. Martin Shydok, a key representative in Poland's administration, has articulated a shift. He noted that as the influx of refugees escalates, so too do the challenges of integration. What is veiled in diplomatic language translates to an alarming reality: Poland, once a sanctuary, is grappling with its limits. The concern isn't just about acceptance, it's a fear of cultural dilution, a sentiment that reverberates through Poland, igniting tensions unseen before. As this situation evolves, it beckons the question, what happens when borders become barriers, not just to people, but to the very essence of identity? How does a nation divide itself, seeking enemies as a distraction from internal failing? Yet, amid the chaos, one must ponder how long such a charade can endure when the truth hangs heavy in the air. What emerges stronger, an external enemy or the call for unity that now seems an echo of the past? This new era of absurdity continues. What will become of a nation caught in a cycle of fear and distrust? What truths lie ahead? Poland, once the refuge for many Ukrainians, is now feeling the strain. Martin Shydok, a representative of the Polish administration, bluntly stated that the influx of refugees is now a burden. He pointed out that when the balance of integration tips, problems arise. In other words, Poland is at its limit. A stark turn from being a welcoming haven, they now prioritize assimilating those already present rather than accepting new arrivals. Imagine the fear rippling through the Ukrainian community, who now face potential exclusion. In just 3 years, Poland's once open arms are slowly closing. This isn't just about humanitarian efforts anymore, it's about the pressing strain on their economy, schools, hospitals, homes, everything under stress. The official tone sounds like a warning, subtly hinting that the influx of Ukrainians might tip the scales of national unity. What happens when they cannot assimilate? What becomes of their culture and identity? Picture this: millions of Ukrainians scattered across Europe, unable to reach relatives in neighboring countries. Suddenly, Poland's doors begin to shut, and Germany remains silent. The implications are chilling. As frustration mounts, Poland's leadership openly acknowledges the weight of continuing this relentless cycle of migration. The once trusted ally now voices concerns over cultural preservation, insisting that this is not merely a transient phase but a critical junction for both nations. Meanwhile, back in Ukraine, absurdities abound as the media scrambles for clarity. Experts are paraded on screens, dissecting the mobilization strategies as confusion reigns. Viewers watch a performance of stylized patriotism, actors in tailored suits discussing heroism amidst the stark contrast of the realities faced by those on the ground. The disparity is jarring. While they speak of storms and threats, the soundscape shifts to a muted recognition of the struggles endured outside their protective bubble. Through elaborate discussions, the tension escalates: what will become of those who flee, those who escape, leaving everything behind? State officials debate imposing measures on those who leave, suggesting penalties against the very citizens they vowed to protect. The stakes are unfathomably high, leaving one to wonder, who truly is the enemy in this evolving narrative? In the midst of uncertainty and fear of losing everything, Poland has voiced an alarming truth about the situation at hand. It's a strange theater of absurdity that unfolds on Ukrainian television, where experts are summoned to dissect the ongoing mobilization. They sit under bright lights, confident and composed, but beneath that facade lies a disconnect from the struggles faced outside their comfortable studios. As the camera shifts to a military analyst, the setting reveals cluttered diplomas and signs of a life marked by hardship. His voice is muffled, lost in the gravity of the moment. He attempts to draw parallels that fail to resonate, disconnected from the reality of a nation at war. With patriotic rhetoric filling the air, the audience senses the pretense. While ordinary citizens grapple with fear and survival, these experts are more like actors in a scripted play. Imagine the chaos outside. The sounds of muffled explosions and the stench of smoke fill the air. The stark contrast between the safe, illuminated studio and the war-torn streets creates an unsettling juxtaposition. Those present in the studio focus on polished presentations instead of acknowledging the genuine plight of those fighting for their survival. Yet, the goal seems singular: to project an image of strength while neglecting the realities faced by those in the trenches. Suddenly, the discussion turns darker. Experts debate harsh measures against those who have fled, suggesting they should be stripped of their resources, even while abroad. The high stakes of such proposals hang heavily in the air, echoing the dilemma of a nation desperate for solidarity and unity. Amidst the backdrop of fear and uncertainty, the question arises: how far will the government go to enforce loyalty? As the studio hums with self-assured analysis, outside, the conflict deepens. Soldiers bravely facing the enemy confront much more than just a physical battle; they negotiate the very essence of their identity and purpose. In one heartbeat, the audience senses the soldiers' anguish. Are they fighting for a cause, or merely to survive in a system that seems increasingly indifferent to their struggles? This stark contrast underscores the absurdity of the situation. Back in the studio, the experts persist in their discussions, oblivious to the poignant reality beyond the set, a world where hope and despair clash continually. The facade is beginning to crack, with tensions rising. How will the story unfold as more voices demand to be heard? The question looms: can a nation heal while grappling with such profound disconnection? In the world brimming with chaos, where real soldiers face genuine struggles, a bizarre spectacle unfolds. Individuals comfortably nestled in their warm homes seem oblivious to the icy grip of war outside. Yet, as the government continues its scripted performance, the ultimate act of betrayal looms. What if those you relied upon suddenly turned against you? As discussions rage in the studio, experts propose punitive measures against citizens living abroad, suggesting that they ought to be stripped of their means simply for seeking a better life. One analyst boldly claims, it's only fair to seize the assets of those who fled. But what does fairness even mean when the state exploits the vulnerable to benefit the privileged? Each year, Ukrainians abroad send home around $8 billion, an economic lifeline sustaining families and funding education. Yet now, amidst threats and intimidation, those dollars are at risk. Citizens abroad, who bravely navigate new realities, find themselves labeled as traitors while those cozy in the capital flaunt orders dictated by comfort. A new moral code emerges, demanding loyalty from the unwilling while vilifying the survivors. Imagine this: your hard-earned passport is rendered worthless. Accounts frozen. The very people who upheld the country during its darkest hours are summoned to return, or else face the music. But why should they? What awaits them in a land where trust is dwindling faster than resources? In this twisted narrative, the government threatens to punish its own, believing that seizing wealth will solve its bravest issue: disillusionment. As communications fade between those at war and those holed up in safer spaces, the very fabric of society begins to unravel. And how long before the silent rebellion becomes a roar? The days of supporting each other are dwindling, raising the question: who will be left to rebuild when trust evaporates entirely? Through a cacophony of stale debates, experts ponder the very existence of resources that disappeared under their watch. They seek to extract obligation from those who successfully escaped, when in reality, what they desperately need are the citizens' faith and support. As the nation teeters on the brink, one sobering thought prevails: can a house built on betrayal endure, or will it crumble under the weight of its own contradictions? Amidst the tumult of war and politics, trust is a dwindling resource in Ukraine. As ties fray, Ukrainians living abroad grow wary. They halt the flow of money back home, signaling a deeper crisis, a crisis of faith in their leaders. The nation grapples not just with military might but with the very essence of faith held by its citizens, a sentiment transforming into skepticism as governmental reforms falter. The truth is, the Ukrainian government appears oblivious to this unraveling trust. Meanwhile, Poland has stealthily risen to become a formidable military powerhouse within the European Union, trumping Italy, France, and even Germany. A country once perceived merely for its economic potential is now exerting military strength, fostering an army molded by modern standards. Billions have been invested in state-of-the-art tanks, artillery, and unmanned systems. Assistance from both South Korea and the United States is a core part of this transformation. While the Ukrainian forces strive valiantly on the battlefield, Poland constructs the future of its military. It has passed heavy weaponry to Germany, positioning itself as a bulwark on NATO's eastern flank. Conversations about the ramifications of this shift evoke questions: what happens when one nation prepares while another stalls? In a twist of fate, as lawmakers in Kyiv ponder new strategies to control their own citizens, Poland is already fostering an advanced society. With factories for ammunition springing up and military training centers emerging, Warsaw's ambitions are clear. If conflict were to ignite, Poland's readiness is beyond doubt. Their soldiers are equipped, trained, and ready to defend. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in Ukraine grows tense and uncertain, with trust slipping further away, leaving only the illusion of control behind. As Poland boldly sets its path, the stark contrast emerges: where one nation embraces transformation, the other appears to tremble under the weight of its past. The question lingers in the air like an impending storm: what will it take for Ukraine to reclaim the trust it has lost? How will this struggle for dignity and identity unfold? The answers may lie in the choices made not just in the halls of power but in the hearts of its people. Ukraine is diving deeper into distrust, labeling foes from within while borders tighten. Shocking news emerges: the mayor of Odessa dubbed an enemy, Poland shuts doors to refugees, and harsh penalties target those fleeing for safety. It's no fiction, reality bites hard as reforms crumble and perceptions shift. Imagine a world where fleeing gains you safety, yet your home shatters it instantly. But what if that security crumbles like dry leaves under a storm? People abroad, breaths held, waiting for the next jab. You tried to save yourself? You're unworthy now. Citizens overseas face blocked transfers, severed ties, and promises turned poison. The state raids the pockets of the desperate. Not just warriors get funded, the owners devour it all. Trust erodes like sand in a gale. And Poland? It rises as Europe's military titan. Not Germany or France. Poland invested billions in tanks, artillery, drones, air defenses. From South Korea and the US. Divisions outpace Berlin. Heavy tanks stream. The U.S. calls them the alliance's Eastern Shield. No noise, just action. Irony stings. While Kyiv blocks accounts and pens pamphlets on patriotism classes, Poland forges future armies. Ammo factories hum, training grounds buzz, jets upgrade. Ukraine spins committee upon committee. Now Poland warns, come our way, you'll face a wall. Truth hits, trained troops, respected allies. Ukraine slips into deviance territory. Faith drives Poland ahead. Illusions blind Ukraine. The gap shows when it's too late. Poland advances decisively, bolstering Europe's defenses while Ukraine fumbles with hollow reforms. But will neighbors turn saviors or guards against chaos? Shadows deepen as illusions blind. Ukraine drowns in hasty fixes. Block a bank account? Roads stay rutted. Spot a dubious mayor? Real spies vanish. Deputies envision army fixes in salon chairs. Leaders plot schemes. People endure trenches or precarious days. Dreams of home clash with simple survival hopes. Exhaustion grips all. Victory pledges echo circus lies. Battles rage for the nation. Poland surges. Europe gates shut. Economy booms? Another reform chant in Kyiv. Only reformers whisper empty fixes, patching roads without tools or builders. Growth? A mirage. Ukraine morphs into a fading show. Fewer spectators. More actors. Roles assigned, hero, expert, reformer, foe. No one stays true. One step from silence. In that void, a riddle lingers. Who betrays the people? The dancers, or the cheerleaders clapping alone? What hidden truth awaits in the silenced applause, a twist that reveals the real betrayers aren't on stage, but in the seats, their hands stained with the ink of false loyalty. Sierra. Dust of betrayal settles. Smell of burning promises lingers. Touch of hidden guilt on every screen. Can you hear the applause fading into screams? Prepared forces and allied respect fuel Poland's charge, exposing Ukraine's spiral into unreliable partnerships. But what if the betrayed eye turns back on itself? Poland believes, Ukraine deceives. Gap widens too late. Ukraine scrambles for quick escapes. Accounts freeze easily. Roads ignore pleas. Fake enemies like labeled mayors surface. Authentic threats slip free. Deputies polish army dreams in barbershops. Bureaucrats scribble fantasies. Lives breathe in muck or fleeting peace. Home yearnings versus dawn's harsh wake. Weariness spreads wide. Sunset vows mock endless farce. Nations fight endures. Poland climbs. Europe seals off. Kyiv economy stalls mid-reform cries. Reformers babble hollow road repairs. No gear. No workers. Expansion stalls. Ukraine shifts to a hollow theater. Viewers dwindle. Performers swell. Scripts etched, warrior, pundit, fixer, threat. Self-fakeness reigns. Silence beckons close. Amid hush, query pulses. True people's enemy? Twirlers on stage, or unseen clappers behind? Unmasking looms, a jolt where the silent majority, applauders in the dark, engineered the downfall, their cheers hiding daggers aimed at the stage's lights. Tang of isolation clings. Ravens croak warnings. Cold sweat of realization trickles down spines. Ever wondered how the crowd's roar masked the guillotine? Ukraine chases elusive boosts through misguided tweaks, as foes multiply in the spotlight like theater props. But what gruesome puppet master pulls these strings? Fake reforms mask real rot. Problems pile hastewise. Free savings quick. Repairs limp on. Mayor phantoms scare easy. True foes evade grasp. Legislators craft soldier plans in vanity mirrors. Thinkers spawn mirage maps. Folks toil in mire or stolen quiet. Return illusions face raw-morn battles. Fatigue oozes everywhere. Dawn pledges taunt perpetual charade. Homeland wars wage on. Poland ascends. Continent bars ways. Kyiv finances stutter with more tweak spells. Fixer's mom repair dreams. Gear nil. Builders absent. Rise fakes flamboyant. Ukraine twists to dimming pageant. Witnesses flee en masse. Enactors flood rosters. Parts pre-assigned, Valiant 1, Analyst, Mender, Adversary. Authenticity voids itself. Quiet approaches inexorably. Within stillness, enigma throbs. Genuine public traitor? Pirouetting artists, or oblivious hand-slammers? Revelation crashes, a seismic flip exposing the standers and shadows, their ovations the true weapon, dismantling the facade with echoes of their own hypocrisy. Metallic bite of secrets in the air. Shadows whisper deceit. Fingers tremble on triggers of forgotten truths. Does the mirror reflect innocence, or the monster in plain sight?